Navigation while working within Pro Tools is pretty important. You want to be able to zoom in, zoom out, move all over the place on these tracks so that you can get in there and edit, modify, make the changes that you might need to in the recording that you're working with. So there's a number of different ways that you can do this. So right now we see the entire song, all three parts, but it would be really hard to narrow in and focus on one little section because I can't see how all the details come together on this. One of the easiest ways to jump into this is down here on the bottom. You just click your arrow buttons, or your plus and your minus. It lets you zoom in, zoom out. You notice how close I can get to these various things, and if you hit play and you focus on one word, you'll be able to hear a single word or a single syllable even that you can modify and change. So those are the most, in a sense, cumbersome ways to do this. I like to use keyboard commands. So another way is Command key with my bracket. Right next to the letter P, you'll have two different brackets. One bracket brings things in close, the other zooms them out. Very quick ways to move back and forth. Again, that's Command and the brackets next to the letter P. You can also use this little button right here, which is activating your keys, gives you hotkeys. You can have a T or an R, and those move back and forth even faster than what you're doing with other things that you're looking at. So there's several different ways to zoom in and zoom out on the things that you're doing here. Again, you could go through all kinds of different scrolling and other pieces. So if you held your command key and scrolled, you can get some other changes as you go. Now I want to bring you over to a couple things here. This is our zoom controls. One way to change these zoom controls is this particular section is kind of small. I want to see larger so I can edit. So I'm going to zoom in, get close to it, but then I also want to get in close and I want to edit that specific section like there. So I want to get closer to it. I come back up to my tool here, my zoom tool, and I can make it larger. I can make it smaller. Gives me more options in the way that I'm working with it. Right next to it is one for MIDI. We don't have any MIDI information. We'll talk about that later. You'll also notice that we have presets. Every size track is different. Every size of a session is a little different. So in this particular case, I can have a preset. So I'm working along and I know that I want to see the whole song. Well, I can make a preset that'll let me click the number 1 and it automatically goes to this place. In this particular case, number 1 is the zoom for the whole session. Number 5 spreads it out dramatically. You can see that all the way back here before you even get any data that you're working with. Number 1 brings you right back to here. Number 2 scrolls along. Again, we're at the end. Let's back it up here to the beginning. You can see it stretches out quite a bit. In this particular case, 1, pretty common, I'll leave it alone. Number 2, let's say I go and I work with this and I stretch it out right to where I want to be so that I can see these sections from here to here pretty easily. I then hold my command key and press on this button. You'll notice it blinks blue for a moment. Now I go back here. Here's my main zoom. Number 2 stretches it out a little bit. Number 3 stretches more, and again I can change these. Too far for me, hold my command, drag back until I get exactly what I want. Hold my command key, click the number 3. Now 1 brings me back to see everything. 2 stretches it. 3 stretches it even more. I've got 5 of those that I can work with as I'm stretching and moving through. So again, navigation is pretty important here. If you don't see these tools, you click on this drop down arrow all the way over on the right hand side, and it's zoom controls. Notice it disappears. Zoom controls comes back in. Now I can make those changes. Several other things that come along in here that you'll want to use over time, but for the moment this gives you a pretty good navigational tool to move around pretty quickly. The larger our sessions get, the more navigation is pretty important to what you're doing. You want to be able to jump back and forth quickly to places. Zoom controls. Drop down menu That's zoom controls. They will pop up here. And then you have several other ways down in the bottom right hand side as well that you can work off of.